Okay, so once again, welcome. This will be a training for 1 hour. I will be working with my colleague Derek Chu from the center as well, who will be helping me monitor the chat feature. If you're joining us from a computer, from a desktop, from a laptop, I invite you to look at the chat feature. I'm going to post the resource document in the chat right now. And I will also welcome everyone and ask that on the chat feature, if you can post your name and the department where you come from so that we can get started. We encourage participants to use the chat feature as well. Everyone is muted for now. There will be a time for asking questions as we move along the content. And my colleague Derek will be monitoring the chat feature so that we can make sure that we respond to all the questions that we receive. Once again, this is being recorded as what you can see on the screen. Um, the session will be shared with everyone, even those who couldn't attend and even those who didn't register, because we want to make sure that this resource is available to everyone. Um, in the second bullet point, you will see a resource document that I recommend, and I also posted this on the chat. I recommend that you visit this because it has plenty of resources that you can use during the session or later, okay? This is what this session is going to cover. In the 1 hour that we have together, we will cover the account settings once you access your Zoom account. Obviously, we will walk you through the process to log in. We will also cover the scheduling meeting settings, and that will include sharing links. There's been plenty of faculty that have asked, how do I share the link of my meeting, my session with my students? Whether you do that on Blackboard or whether you do that via email, the one link that you will share will be enough for them to join. And then we will also touch on how to share recorded sessions, because that is one question that a lot of faculty have raised over the past few days. This is a level 1 session, but there's also another level 2 workshop happening later today and also 2 more next week. I will share all of the information at the end, but the information is on the document that you see right on the screen. If you're interested in any of the features that you see on your screen, that will be a session level 2, and I encourage and invite you to sign up. Here's what we're going to be doing today. Like I said, we're going to be covering the very basics. This is a demo session of those specific features. Attendees are encouraged to follow along. However, if you feel that the time is not enough, or if you need to spend more time on this, this is being recorded and you can watch the specific segment as many times as you need to later on so that you can complete the activity that you want to complete in your own account. The recording will be publicly available in the center's YouTube account, and it's being recorded so that everyone is able to access this. We wanted to put some quick points up front. The virtual help desk on the Zoom website, it's very helpful and provides very specific how-to videos for students to follow along, students and faculty. It has quick how-to videos that you can find there. The link is there, but I will also include that on the resource document that I'm giving you as part of this workshop. There have been a lot of questions about cloud storage. When you record to Zoom, you can either record to the cloud or to your local computer. There have been many questions about that from faculty and staff, and IT has stated that the cloud storage is limited, and they recommend that each user limit their usage to 1 GB only. This is cloud storage. It's important to note that. As you can see in the next point, a local recording, meaning recording and generating a file in your computer, is recommended over cloud storage. We will go over briefly how to set up your Dropbox account provided by CUNY and with plenty of space so that you can find a way to share your recordings if that is what you're looking for, if that is what you're doing with your students. Many faculty have asked about this, so we wanted to make sure that we relayed that at the beginning of the session. The IT division also has an email address. A lot of times faculty are not sure where to write in case they encounter any issues. The email address is zoomhelp@lagcc.cuny.edu. That is an email address that IT monitors, and if you have any questions or issues, hopefully not, but if you have any issues when using your account and if something does not work, the IT division asks that we share with you that you can write to that email address and they will get back to you right away. So this will be the start of the session. I want to reiterate once again that the slides that you are seeing right in front of you are available on the resource document that I will show you in a moment in case you want to revisit this later. I am showing you the slides right now, but I will also take you to the website so that I can demonstrate how to do all of this, how to tweak all of these settings. And you're welcome to follow along or pay close attention so that you can learn how it's done. In case there are any questions, we continue to encourage everyone to post them on the chat. My colleague Derek is monitoring that. So to access the CUNY Zoom account, you go into that URL that's right on the top, cuny.zoom.us. We're going to get there in a moment. There is an option to download a client, meaning like a little program software that you can download into your own computer. If you're able to do that in the device that you're working, it is recommended. You do not have to do it, but it is recommended that you do it so that you're able to use Zoom once you open that program, the client, you don't necessarily have to log in every time that you open it. So it's very convenient. To enter your CUNY Zoom account, to access your CUNY Zoom account, you need the credentials that you see on the third bullet point. That's the first name, that last name, followed by 2-digit numbers. And those 2 digits are normally the last 2 digits of your CUNY EMBL ID. We have encountered that a lot of faculty try to access their CUNY Zoom accounts by entering their Outlook email address, the LaGuardia Outlook email address, and that generates an issue. The login credentials that faculty and students and staff as well should use are the CUNY login credentials, okay? The last 2 points are 2 things that I already mentioned before. So now we're gonna, excuse me, now we're gonna jump to the browser. Again, you can follow along if you want on your own browser, on your own desktop, but if not, you can pay attention to the specific steps and then you can get back to it later. The first thing that we're gonna do to get,
Pablo.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 2 questions. I'm not sure, like, I don't know if you're going to cover it in a second.
Go right ahead.
First question, how do you join a meeting like this one while you're already logged into the CUNY Zoom account?
Sure.
Because yeah, this is like from Leah Richards. She said when she logged in and tried to join this meeting with the ID and password, it just went straight to registration. Like, is that normal?
For this particular meeting, well, for this particular meeting, this was set up with a registration link. So if you enter your information, first name and last name and email address, Zoom automatically generated a Zoom link that when you were ready to join, you simply clicked on it and then it would take you directly to the meeting. Unless you didn't register before, and if you clicked on the link that I sent out via email, it definitely did take you to the registration link because probably you didn't register, and then you input your information and then it takes you into the meeting. Was there any other question?
Oh, and like this PowerPoint is available in like the Google the Google link that you sent, right?
That is correct. And I will make sure
Okay.
that I post the link once
Yeah,
again
I
so that I
reposted
can.
the link
Oh, you
too.
did. Great. Thank you so much. So we're gonna jump into that in just a moment. Yeah.
Yep.
So the first thing that we're gonna do together, and what we recommend every user does, is look at your account settings once you're logging. Okay, we're gonna log in together, and then we're gonna look at the account settings. There's plenty of account settings that you can look at, but the ones that you see on the screen are going to be the ones that we're gonna look at together. Okay. So let me go ahead and jump to the page, and I'm going to. So the first thing that I want to do now is, right before we get into the Zoom website, is show you the document that Derek has posted the link to. This is the resource document. And this first, you will see the Zoom training information. These are the Zoom sessions that the center is offering. And I want to draw your attention to this line right here, because in here are the slides that I am showing you at this moment. So you already have access to this already. This document is publicly available, and you can even feel free to share this with others in case you find this helpful. If you scroll down a little bit, there is plenty of resources. And I only want you to be aware of this. I don't want you to click on this right now. I just want you to have this resource so that you can later reference it at a later point. Every time that I make a reference to something, it will be in this document. And we make this available to you because we realized that we wanted to have everything together in one single document. Okay. So to join the CUNY Zoom, if you type in cuny.zoom.us on your browser, there is no specific browser that IT recommends, but the most widely used are Google Chrome and Firefox, whichever you are able to access it. If you're using Safari or Microsoft Edge, I believe you will be able to use them optimally, but just be aware of that in case you encounter any issue when accessing your account. Normally, the first troubleshoot tip is to switch browsers if you have more than one. If you go to cuny.zoom.us, you will be able to see the screen that I'm seeing right now. And just to confirm, Derek, you're seeing that my browser at this point with the Zoom login, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're going to see these three buttons. The first one the one that you want to click on, it's sign in. Right now, I'm already logged into my account, but it will prompt you to log in with the CUNY login credentials. And that's why it's important to memorize or have those handy. It's your first name, that last name, followed by the 2-digit numbers. And those numbers are normally the last 2 digits of your CUNY MPO ID.
Yeah,
Let me just,
Pablo,
yep.
sort of related to this. Like what happens if you have a personal Zoom account?
Oh, so let me move my screen. In case once you are on your browser and you log into your to your account, you can tell that you're on the CUNY logging on the CUNY account, because if you click on your profile right here, you will be able to see licensed and your CUNY account. Let's say that for some reason you see your personal account, Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever it is. You can simply sign out, and then it will take you back to the login page. In case you are in the CUNY in the Zoom website, and you see something like this, and once again, all of this is being recorded so that you can review this later if you need to. You click on signing. A lot of the times, faculty and users normally use this to sign in from the Zoom website. But in case you're here, it's important that you use this button, signing with SSL. This means that you have an institutional license. That's what CUNY gave us, and we're simply going to put CUNY right here. CUNY.zoom.us, and it will take me to the page where I need to log in. This is the page that I was speaking about a moment ago. So, and then right here, what you're going to do is you're going to put your first name and your last name, followed by the 2 digits of your CUNY MPOL ID, as you can see on my screen. I'm simply going to input that information and your CUNY first password. And then once I click on login, it's going to take me directly to my account. I can tell that I am on my CUNY account if I go right here. And once again, I see my CUNY email address right here. In some cases, some faculty have reported that even after following what I did a moment ago, they still see their personal account, Gmail or whatever personal account they had. If that is the case, I recommend clearing the cookies, the passwords in your browser. Normally, browsers save passwords and usernames so that it's much easier for the user to access certain websites. Perhaps your browser is automatically logging you in the moment that you go into Zoom account, into the Zoom website with your personal account. So you might want to clear the cookies. And that depends on your browser, whether you're using Google Chrome or Firefox. That will vary depending on the browser. But I recommend that as a troubleshoot tip in case you're following what I did a moment ago and you still do not get to your CUNY account. Okay. As I mentioned, once you log into your CUNY website, and I want to reiterate, you can follow along or you can pay attention to what I'm doing. All of this is being recorded so that you can follow and revisit this at a later point. I mentioned that the first thing that we wanted to do together was to go into, settings. And in the settings, once you click on it, there's going to be plenty of options, and we're not going to go over all of them, but we're going to go over only a couple of them, okay? The first one is going to be require a passcode when scheduling new meetings. This is, in this case, in all of the settings here, you're going to see that they are either turned on or turned off, okay? My settings are not the ones by default because I have already altered this. So just make sure that you're making sure that whatever setting you want to enable or disable, it's simply on or off, okay? In my case, it's recommended CUNY in their CUNY Zoom protocol recommend that they add passcode when scheduling meeting. This adds a layer of security. So you just make sure that in this case it's on, but now you can turn it off or you can turn it on. All right. So again, make sure that you consider doing this in your own account. The embed passcode in embed passcode in invite link for one-click join. We recommend that you turn that on. Zoom, I think, does a very good job in explaining what this is. So if embed passcode in invite link it's not clear, then what this means is that every time a meeting passcode is generated, it will be encrypted and included in the invite link to allow participants to join with just one click without having to enter one passcode. So you may probably be familiar that in some cases, a user is trying to get into a meeting and then you give them the link, but then they get back to you saying, what's the passcode? It's asking me for a passcode. If you enable this, setting, what it will do is every time you generate a meeting with a passcode, Zoom will automatically encrypt the password into the link so that when the user clicks on it, he or she will be able to join the meeting directly. Okay, this is essentially what this setting is. Let me just do Control F right here and jump straight to the chat. Again, I highly recommend that you take a look at this in close detail later. We're only going over the basics and we're choosing specific settings for the purposes of this training workshop. These basic settings will allow you to do many things. So there is no need to add additional ones unless you really want to, okay? So in the chat features, as you are using the chat right now, for instance, you're using the chat to post questions, to ask something specifically, you can always turn that on or turn that off. So obviously we recommend if you're using that in your classes that you turn it on and make sure that it's on. There is this feature right here as well that you can prevent participants from saving the chat. That does not interfere with you as the host saving the chat. You can always enable this and make sure that your participants, in your case, your students, will not be able to save the chat for themselves. Okay, but you as a host are able to save the chat for your own purposes. Okay. The private chat right here allows meeting participants to send private one-on-one message to one another in the meeting. You can either enable or you can disable this, okay? And essentially what this means is you can give your participants the ability or your students the ability to message one another without you as a host knowing about it. So if you don't want your students to be messaging one another saying, for instance, hey, what's the answer for question 13? What did you get? Something like that. Then you can always disable that So if that is the case, participants will only be able to send a message to you as the host or to everyone, everyone in the entire class. Let's see right here. I'm going to go a little bit into a file transfer in the chat as well. I will show what this looks like in a moment, but the file transfer essentially means in the chat, for instance, the chat that you're using, you can enable the feature to share a specific document via the chat, whether it's an Excel sheet, a spreadsheet, an image, a Word document. You can enable that if you want, or you can also disable, okay? The cool thing that Zoom does here is that you as a host can also allow for specific file types. So for instance, let's say that you only want to enable this, but you only are working with Word documents. So you can always just put a Word document, this is the file type for a Word document. And that means that your students are only going to be able to upload that type of document. If they want to upload an image, they will not be able to do that, right? You can put multiple ones in case you want, you're working with an Excel sheet or a PDF. It's an additional layer of security that Zoom allowed so that specific file types are shared in the chat. Just as a tidbit in terms of security, this will allow you to share multiple types of files. And in case a user is posting something that's an unknown type of file or something that can be like a virus, then Zoom will not let that file to be transferred because the extension of the file is simply different. So again, this is an option that's ready and available for you, all on your account settings. And you do all of this before scheduling your meetings and you will be good, okay? The next thing that I wanna jump straight to is the breakout room. A lot of faculty have asked questions about, I don't see the breakout room in my meeting when I log in. You always have to make sure that you visit the settings on your account and you make sure that the breakout room is enabled, okay? Right now, if I turn it off, it's off, but I make sure that it's on right now, okay? So most of the times, you always have to make sure that you visit the settings to make sure that's on. A lot of faculty have also asked about closed captioning, and it's important to mention that in this training session as well. CUNY is still working on a third-party closed captioning from what we know. This is obviously information. We don't have additional information at this point. However, there is a closed captioning tab that I will show you later that you can enable here. CUNY is working on something that can be made available to the rest of the faculty so that you can use that as an additional option, okay? I want to make sure that I just put, I think it's polling right here. Polling, it's another feature that faculty normally use in their classes, and it is also found under settings. It's a matter of turning that on or off, all right? So the option is right here. In my case, it's on. I will show you all of this once I get into the meeting space. Let me see, and I'm just gonna jump into rename. This is something important, and I was just speaking to a faculty member before this session. Allow participants to rename themselves. And what this means is allow meeting participants and webinar panelists to rename themselves. Most of the times you may find that if the students are joining from a phone or they're joining from someone else's device, they may join your meeting, but there may be a different name if that other person was using Zoom as well. So if you enable this option, you are simply allowing the participant to rename themselves from John Doe to Pablo Avila. So that's an important security measure that we recommend all faculty to be aware of, but also for faculty who are looking to see the attendance or see who is in their meeting for the purposes of attendance. You might want to make sure that you always remind your students to know how to rename themselves in case they have someone else's name in their Zoom accounts and for the purposes of attendance. So that option is also right here. And finally, the last basic setting that I want to go over here is the virtual backgrounds. The virtual background is what you see on my video right now. If you look at my video thumbnail, I'm using one of LaGuardia's images I'm going to show you a resource where LaGuardia has put together a range of images. If your students are choosing to turn their cameras on, the virtual background is a good option to consider. Okay. We're going to jump to the next session, the next part, but I want to stop here and ask Derek if there are any questions at this point. All good, Derek?
Yep, no questions yet.
Okay, cool. Again, all of this is being recorded, and you can revisit this later on if you need to. We're going to get into the meetings, and people were asking about how do you schedule a meeting, how do you share the link, and all of that. That's exactly what we're going to get into. We're still on the website. Okay, we're still on the website. We looked at the settings. Now we're going to go into the meetings tab. These are all of my meetings that I have. You can see this red icon because this meeting is in progress. And if I go and click on any of the other meetings, I will be able to see the information for that. But I'm going to show you now how do you schedule a meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on schedule a meeting right here. And this is the page where I am on right now. The topic I'm just going to put for the purposes of this activity, FYS 101.
Oh, Pablo, we have a quick question. This is from Tulip. So should a teacher tell the student to turn the remain yourself feature on or off?
I think it is recommended that that students look at that option in their own accounts. However, it's important to know that if you yourself are enabling that in your account, and when students come to a session that you yourself have scheduled, they will have that option because they are in your meeting. So as long as you have it enabled for your account, and as long as the students join your session that you yourself have scheduled, they will be able to rename themselves. So they necessarily don't have to look for that option in their own account. As long as you set it up in your own account, they will be able to rename themselves.
Okay, and can you also go over how to take attendance, or like how to enable attendance?
Sure. There is no specific mechanism on Zoom to take attendance. Once I go over scheduling a meeting, I will show how to look at the reports that you can use for attendance purposes. It's a little tricky though, because you would have to look at that list carefully. I'm going to go over that in a moment. Okay, you can use that for attendance purposes, however. Okay. So let me get back to this. For the purposes of this activity, this is going to be an FYS 101. The description, it's up to you. As it says right here, it's optional. You can or you don't have to put this. I'm going to skip the template for now. And in this case, I just want this meeting to be on Saturday, and I want it to be at 1 o'clock. Okay. Now, here's where the tricky part comes, or here's the specific setting for that. If you want to set up recurring meetings, that way you don't have to do this process every single week. You simply check recurring meeting, okay? Now, how do we go ahead and do this? So you check recurring meeting, and my class will meet every Saturday at 1 p.m., let's say. Some people were asking yesterday, what if your class is meeting at 1:15? You can input the time 1:15. And in my case, my browser, I think, does not allow it, but I've heard other users, they input 1:15, and then you will be able to set that starting time increment. As you can see on the menu, Zoom only allows for 30-minute increments. Now, even if that is not the case, if my class starts at 1:15, I can still set this up for 1 o'clock and simply start the class at 1:15. There is no disruption in that. As long as I, as the host, start the meeting will run normally. If, for instance, I set this meeting to start at 1 o'clock and I only set it for 1 hour, but let's say that my meeting goes beyond 1 hour, Zoom will not kick you out. Zoom will continue to run as long as you, as a host, start the meeting and continue in the meeting, okay? So back to recurring meeting. I want to set this up for multiple sessions, multiple occurrences. I don't need to meet every day. I'm going to meet every week. on Saturday. And as I click on this option, Zoom will give me additional settings to choose from. So I want to repeat this every week, and I don't want this on any day other than Saturday. Now, you have two options at the end. You can either end this occurrence every week by, if you look at the academic calendar, as I do, I think we're going to end classes on the 12th. So you can end it by then, or you can choose this option and you can say, from this coming Saturday, I simply want 12 classes. And 12 occurrences will happen every week from the moment that you set this on, okay? So it's either this or this option, okay? Again, if I choose this option, you can choose when this occurrence will end. For the purposes of this activity in particular, I'm just gonna set it until next week so that you can see what I mean, okay? I want this to be every Saturday, 1 o'clock, and I want this to be for an hour on Saturdays every week, and I want it to end next week.
Oh, Pablo,
Yeah.
just real quick, you can like you probably can't do it, but like other people have been able to set the, I guess, a meeting time to be like precise, right?
Correct. That's what I mentioned a moment ago. In my case, I don't know why my browser does not allow it. Other people have told me that they have been able to put here 125. There you go. Actually, I had to click on it. So let's say that my class starts at 1:15. So you enter the time and then you press right here, and there you go. My class is now as starting at 1:15. Okay. On security, this is the passcode that I mentioned in the settings that it's recommended. The waiting room essentially means that students, before they get into your class, you will be notified that specific user is trying to access your meeting. And you can enable that as a layer of security. Just be aware that you would have to admit every student as they come in. So this really depends. In some cases, in case you've had difficult experiences with people trying to get into your Zooms, I highly recommend that then you enable this. And then what's going to happen is every time you open your meeting, students are going to come into your meeting, and then you're going to have to admit them all together, obviously, as you recognize who they are. If you see that's someone who's not in your class is trying to access your room, your session, then you simply do not let them in, okay? This
Yeah,
video,
Pablo, sort
yep.
of related to this, like how does a person end up in like a waiting room if only the students have access to like the link on Blackboard? Like, I guess like how is it possible that like some other random person gets into it?
That's a tough question. I honestly don't have the answer. Perhaps your link was shared inadvertently, perhaps with someone else or publicly. There's different factors. I honestly cannot give one particular reason. Now, in some cases, you may have heard in the news many months ago, there were some acts of hacking. So it's not that you'd necessarily shared your link, but there were hackers who were randomly accessing meeting rooms on Zoom. Obviously, that is why Zoom and subsequently CUNY have established security protocols like enabling waiting room and enabling a passcode so that it is more difficult to hack into your session. It has happened, unfortunately, and there are multiple reasons for that. I don't think there's one specific explanation. Yeah. The video settings right here mean that when you enter the room, the host, in this case, you are the instructor, can choose to have your video on or off by default. Now, in this case, I have it off. It does not mean that you cannot turn your camera on. You can always get to the meeting with your camera off, just get ready and then turn it manually on. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. The same for the participants. If your participants, if you, depending on the regulations, the rules that you've set in your class, if you have given them the option to turn their cameras on, then I would recommend to start with this. And then if they choose to turn it on, students will be able to do that, okay? The audio, I always recommend personally to have it in both because we don't know where students are going to be joining from. They may be joining from a phone, they may be joining from an iPad, they may be joining from a computer. So the different types of devices will vary. So if you only choose this, that means that you're only allowing participants to join your session from a telephone, and I'm sure you don't want that unless you really are planning for that. The same for computer audio. If a participant is trying to access your meeting from a telephone and you have this enabled, he or she will not be able to get into the session. I always recommend having in both, just in the interest of being inclusive of everyone's devices. And then lastly, the meeting options right here. If you enable the waiting room, the first option, obviously it's automatically disqualified, enable join before host. What this means is that you have to, as the host, have to start the meeting and then your participants will be able to join. If you do not enable this, and if they do get into your meeting, what's going to happen is participants are going to try to get into your meeting and they're going to see a window that says waiting for the host to start. So they're not going to be able to join until you do. Okay. Mute participants upon entry. I recommend this personally because sometimes, especially if the students are not familiar with Zoom, they may not be sure how to mute themselves, and sometimes they may be in environments when there's plenty of noise background. So I recommend muting everyone upon entry. However, it's important to know that even when you set this, participants are still able to unmute themselves. So only because you choose this doesn't mean that you're going to keep them muted for the entire time. All right. This is only the default setting as they come into the meeting. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And I'm going to show you what this looks like now in my set of meetings.
Oh, Pablo, real quick, can you just review where to find like all these settings features? And is this like different if you're using it, if you're doing this from a personal account, or is it like the same?
By settings, I assume the settings that we were talking about a moment ago. All of this, it's on the Zoom website, on your Zoom account when you're logging on the browser, and you simply go into settings. And these are all of the settings that we reviewed at the beginning of our session. These settings are universally the same, whether you have an account with CUNY or you have your personal free account. They will always be the same. The only difference is that in the case of institutional licenses, like the license that we have from CUNY, there may be settings that you are not able to change because CUNY may have defaulted those settings for all of the users. That is the only difference. But in terms of the navigation, every time you log into any account that you may have on Zoom, you will always see all of this. You can go into settings and you can tweak all of the settings, which we did at the beginning of this session. In terms of the meetings, once I go back to my meeting, I just created one and I want to show you what that looks like. It is right here. So if I go ahead and click on this, I'm going to be able to see the information. Now there's 3 buttons right here. One of them is to start the meeting. Like I'm not going to start it right now, but when I'm ready, I will go ahead and click on it. I can edit the meeting if I want to, or I can simply delete it if I don't want to. Just going to go ahead and click on I want to see the information because now what I want to show you is this is what this looks like. And now I want to show you the link. This is the link that I will be able to share with my class. So in some cases, users may be going right here to this page, which is helpful because this allows you to have the full invitation and it has additional information. For instance, if the user is not if the user does not know how to join from the web or cannot, this will provide additional phone numbers in case the user wants to call in. And remember the option to telephone, computer only, and both. The invitation is generating all of this info because I chose both. Okay. Now you don't necessarily, if you know that all of your students are joining from the computer, all you can do is simply choose, click on this link and then copy this link so that you can share this on your Blackboard. I want to show you one more thing and then I'm going to jump into my Blackboard course to show how I'm going to share that. But I want to show you this. This is a meeting that I did not set up for one time. This is a recurrent meeting. And if I go right here and I click on show all occurrences, I will be able to see all of the recurrences that I have for this particular meeting. All right. I only opt in to choose to do 2 for the purposes of this activity, but obviously you will see many more in the event that you're choosing this for your own, you're doing this for your own class. You can edit a particular one, a particular instance, or you can even delete it. Let's say that this week, the academic calendar says you're not having classes, you can simply go ahead and delete this occurrence. So I'm going to jump into my CUNY Blackboard course as an example, but Derek, are there any questions at this point?
Yes. Yeah, so basically, someone's asking, basically when she types in like zoomus.com, like she sees her account and she sees the other options, but not like the settings that like we were going over. So
Is she on the browser? Are you on the browser? It's hard to tell. If you're on the browser, you navigate to your account. More than likely, once you log into the CUNY.zoom.us, you will land on a page that is more or less like what you see in here. In some cases, some users may have their pages minimized, as you can see right now. So obviously, if that is the case, you may not see the settings right away. But if you click on this arrow right here, you may be able to see settings. So again, in some cases, users may have just minimized the dimensions of the resolution of the browser, and sometimes the settings may not fully display. But every user, if you log into your CUNY account, you land into a page like this, you will see the settings on the right side. I want to go to a sample Blackboard course because one of the recurring questions that we get from faculty is how do I share a link to with my students? Like, do I have to do that every week? How do I do that as simple as possible? I want to go back to my meeting right here, and I'm going to go back to my FYS 101. I show you this for a purpose, all right? In this case, there's two occurrences, and the thing that's important to note here is that this link, it's the same for all occurrences. So you don't have to share a different link every single week. This particular meeting with this particular two occurrences will be accessible via the same link, okay? So all you have to tell your students is simply join via this link every Saturday at 1:15, and we will meet there. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the link URL. And again, it's the same link for these two occurrences. And you can copy and paste this on an email address and then send it to your students. Or you can put it on your own Blackboard course as well. And the way that I do this, and that I recommend if you are using Blackboard, is you can do it in this way. Let me just go ahead and I will edit right here. So if I go into my course, this is a sample course. I'm simply going to go into the edit button right here, and then I'm going to add a web link. Okay, this is a web link because it's an external website. It's not something within Blackboard, it's an external website. Again, I am on edit mode, and I go to the plus sign, and I'm going to add a web link. I want to make sure that this is clear to students. So I'm just going to put Zoom meetings so that I can make sure that this is clearly labeled for my students. That's going to be the name, meaning that is the name that it's going to appear on the menu so that students see. And then on the URL, I'm simply going to paste the link that I posted from here. Okay, this one link for these two occurrences will be the same, and I will post it in here. I want to make sure that I make this available to users, meaning that I want my students to see this right away. So I'm going to check this off, and then I'm going to hit submit. So now my link is created, and I want this to be at the top because I want to make sure that my students do not miss this. So I'm going to use on edit mode, I'm going to use these arrows right here to bring it all the way on the top underneath information. So now there is a new tab on my class on Blackboard that it's clearly labeled Zoom meetings. You can choose something else like weekly sessions, however you think it's best. And then once you click on it, students will be taken to that link in Zoom, and then they will get them into the meeting. Again, if I go into my add content right here, the option that I chose was web link. Okay, and that it's an easy way to share your one link if you're creating a recurrent meeting in Zoom with your class on Blackboard. You can choose to email this if you want to as well. And some people ask whether Zoom will be available as a tool link. If I go in as a tool link, I can add many of the options that already are embedded in the Blackboard system. For instance, Microsoft Teams, or WebEx, or Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Zoom will soon be an option in this. It is not at the moment, at the time of this recording, but the IT folks confirmed that it will be in the future. But in the meantime, that does not mean that you cannot share your link. You can do so very well by simply adding a web link, pasting your link, and you will be there. Okay. I want to stop here and questions. Yes.
Yeah. So first question, if I have a personal Zoom account and a CUNY account, can I use either for the students? And second question, like this, like what you just did, it more or less is like makes it like the same as like Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, right?
So the second question first, the answer is yes. If you share your link of a recurring meeting via this way, via a web link, it's totally the same, and students will be able to get into your class, see it on the menu, and then click on it, and then at the time of your meetings, they'll be able to join the meeting. In terms of whether you can use your personal account or your Zoom account, I recommend using your Zoom account because there's a couple of benefits, unless you have a pro account. Remember that back in the spring, there were many faculty who raised the issue of the duration of the meetings. If you have a basic pro account in Zoom, you will be limited to 40 minutes when you're having a meeting with more than one person. And there may be other problems that you may have if in case you don't enable the settings for your account. But if you use your CUNY account, you will not be restricted by the time, meaning you can have meetings of longer than 40 minutes, and you can have up to 300, that was the other difference. In your CUNY account, you can have up to 300 people in one single session. But in the pro accounts, from what I understand, but I can always be wrong, but from my knowledge on Zoom, if you have a personal pro account, you only have up to 100 people in one single session, unless you pay more. So using the CUNY account, it's obviously more beneficial. It brings you the ability to have longer meetings. And in the event that you're looking to have a class with more than 100 people, you will be able to do that as well. So it is recommended to use your CUNY account. Now, besides those two, is there any difference in terms of how you navigate the account settings? There really is not, because once you log into your CUNY account, you will log into a profile that will look more or less like this, and you will be able to navigate to the settings and tweak the settings as you wish. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is now I want to share my entire desktop, and I will do this so that I can share my meeting environment. You probably are able to see everything, including your own video. I'm doing this for the purposes of demonstrating what the in-meeting settings are going to be. And one of the first things that I want to point out is that in one of the latest releases that Zoom made a couple of days ago, there is now the ability to move video thumbnails in your screen. So I can go ahead and move, for instance, myself right here, and then move my colleague Derek all the way to the top. Okay, so in the past, you couldn't do this. But now with the latest version of Zoom, and I'm going to show you how to update that if you have a client, you are able to manipulate and order your video thumbnails in your screen. You probably are seeing the screen differently than I am. Maybe yes, maybe not. And that is why I want to go over this. There is a couple of different views available on Zoom. The first one is the speaker, meaning that I can, I will see my colleague only in the spotlight right now. But if I go ahead and choose the gallery, I will be able to see many more video thumbnails. Okay, so in my case, I am only working on a 13-inch MacBook Pro. I only have so much real estate in front of me. Obviously, I can see as many as this video thumbnails as you can see on my screen. If you were to have a bigger screen, I believe you can see up to 49 video thumbnails if you are in a meeting with that many people. Okay, in the event that you are in a small screen and you do not see everyone, there will usually be another page right here that will take you to the second page and you will get to go back and forth. So that is the gallery view. I always encourage to have this in front of you because at least this is the closest that you can see to seeing everyone in your class. Now remember, all of this if your students are choosing to turn their videos on. Okay. Over here, I also want to show the chat feature. And if I'm just going to pop this up and click on close. If I go ahead and click on the chat feature, I normally will see this pop-up window that comes up. And sometimes it's a little inconvenient because I may want to move it around and I don't know what to do with it. I always recommend merging this with my view of the video thumbnail. So the way that I do this is I go right here, and then I'm going to choose the option merge to meeting window. That is going to allow me to have a more effective distribution in the small screen that I have. If you have a bigger screen, obviously you have an advantage, but if you have a 13-inch screen as I do, you might want to take full advantage of that space. So you go right here and then you simply merge that into here. Also, if you go right here, you will see the file button, and the file button will allow you to share documents. As I remember, I told you, you can share documents. You can disable that if you want. And then the button on the right side will allow you to save the chat. And this is also an ongoing question that people have. How do I save the chat if I'm interacting with my students? I'm asking them questions. If you go right here, you can automatically save the chat if you go to your settings and enable that feature. Or at the end of your class, you can manually save this as well. What this will do is this will generate a text file with all of the interactions that have happened in the chat. I want to stop here in case there are any questions. Derek.
Yes. Will you be going over how to share documents with students?
Yes. So
And
is there?
how to
I can go over that
access
quickly.
and find the chat manuscript?
And how to what?
Access and find the chat manuscript.
Yes, I will go over that in a moment. Let me go
And
over. Yeah.
I also had some question about, just how would you compare Blackboard Collaborate Ultra versus Zoom, which is the preferred platform that we should be using for, like, what are the features? How do we compare? Like,
Two of the things that I find personally more beneficial in using Zoom versus Blackboard Collaborate, where that the breakout rooms are much more easy to navigate in Zoom than it is on Blackboard. And back in the spring, Blackboard Collaborate was a CUNY provided tool and Zoom was not. So back then it was more beneficial to use Blackboard Collaborate. Today, I think they are both equally. It really depends on what will serve your needs most. In your case, if you find that Blackboard Collaborate is something that you're comfortable with, you can go ahead and keep using that. But if you find that Zoom now, it's a more beneficial tool for you and your students, you can use Zoom over Blackboard now that it's also provided by CUNY.
Okay. Pablo, can I ask about the comparison?
Are there going to be more trainings for Blackboard too? Sorry.
We can certainly coordinate that. I don't have any information as to when the trainings will happen, but I can certainly coordinate that. And whenever there will be, we will communicate those via email. Yes.
Thank you.
Stephen, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. In Blackboard Collaborate, I find that you can only see 4 people, 4 of your students, and the rest of them have a little plus sign. Am I correct about that?
Thank you for raising that, and I see
that's a huge comparison.
Yes, thank you. And I should have been more transparent in responding to Mangala's question. I have not used Blackboard Collaborate extensively. Other colleagues have used it, and Stephen, you've reminded me of that. I believe that it's correct. You can only see a certain amount of people in your screen at a time. 4, I think, Linda is referring to. Thank you. So that is a major difference if you want to see everyone in your screen as I am right now. In my case, I can see
I think that's
everyone.
so important. That's
Thank you
really
for
the
raising
whole.
that.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you for raising
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. So there you go. I think that's one major point that everyone will want to consider. I want to quickly go over the share. Derek, I think you're able to see my share pop-up window, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So if I share right now, if I click, if I go to the bottom of my screen, as you can see, there's plenty of settings for the host. All right. And I will go over a couple of them. The most important one and related to the question is share. If you want to share a particular document, a particular application, okay? In my case, I am sharing my desktop, and this is what this means. If you are considering sharing a Word document, and then a PowerPoint, and then a video on YouTube, and then something on Blackboard, and you're going to be toggling back and forth between different applications, it's recommended that you share your desktop. Just be cognizant that that means that users will be able to see your whole environment. Okay, so just be cognizant of that. If you, however, are only sharing one item during your class, one application, let's say you have your PowerPoint slides for your entire class, and that's the only item that you're going to be sharing, then you can go ahead and choose that option in there and share only that, okay? In my case, I only have 3 items right here because these are the 3 windows that I have opened. But if you have many more windows open, you will see all of them, okay? The whiteboard is something that it has been particularly helpful, especially for faculty teaching math, I believe, but I'm sure many others in other disciplines have used it as well. The whiteboard is essentially that. It's a whiteboard where you can write and your students will be able to see that. I've seen many faculty members who use that in MEC and who teach math, and they, write equations, or they write and delete something, erase something. So that's beneficial for that point. I haven't fully tested it myself. And in the event that you were to do that right now in the context where I am, I have a laptop in front of me and I have a mouse. If I were to choose this right now, the only device that I could write with would be essentially my mouse. And that probably wouldn't be the most effective way of doing it. You can use the whiteboard, I believe, with a tablet and any kind of stylus. I haven't fully tested that, but if that is the case, you could use, let's say, an Apple Pencil or any stylus, and that will allow you to write much more effectively than you would with a regular mouse. So that is how the whiteboard can be used. And then if you share any of these applications, you will always see the option right on the top where you are able to see all of your controls. And then every time that you want to stop sharing, you simply hit on the stop sharing, and then all of your sharing will stop. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of related to that, is it possible to share, like, let's say, a Word document and a video at the same time?
That was my question.
It is possible to do that if you are sharing your entire desktop as I am. So for instance, right now, I am sharing my window right here, and I can share my Blackboard, and I think you're able to see both side to side, right? So if we were to have your video right here and a Word document right here, absolutely, you can do that. So as long as you share your desktop, if you want to share multiple documents, applications throughout your session, you might want to share your desktop as I am right now, because I'm toggling between the browser and my Zoom window. Or if you want to share one application at a time, you can choose to do that as well, okay? I want to jump right here and go into the client. Oops. I think you're able to see my client right now. And in this case, the client, it's something that you can download. Sorry. The client is something that you can download if you are able to do that on your device, whether you are on a Mac or on a Windows computer, you are able to download the client. And if you see right here on the top right, you are able to click on your picture and you will be able to see different settings. The one thing that I wanted to show here, because we've been getting a lot of questions about this, is how do I update my client? So if I go into my picture right here, I can check for updates, and it will tell me, Zoom will tell me you have this update available. In my case, I don't anymore because I have already updated it. But if you have the client, it's always recommended that you look for updates. Whether it's a new feature or whether it is a security patch, it's always helpful to have your client up to date. I also want to go to the settings, and if you click on settings, this window will be available whether you are on a Windows or on a Mac. Right now, as you may have already noticed, I am working on a Mac. But if you are working on a Windows and you have the client, you should be able to see the gear button with the settings. And then right here, I wanted to show a couple of things, okay? First of all, I wanted to show where the recording is. The recording tab is by default, and I want to go back to the point that I made at the beginning. Remember that the cloud recording is limited, so users are recommended to use local recording instead of cloud recording. What does that mean? It essentially means that if you're recording a session, at the end of your meeting, when you're done, Zoom will generate a video file, and it will generate a video file that it's stored on your computer, and that then you can then upload into your CUNY, into your Dropbox account, as I will do in just a moment. If you go into your settings and you go into recording, you will be able to see where that folder is. Sometimes, or by default, I should say, Zoom creates a Zoom folder in your documents drive when you download the client. And if you open this, you will be able to open the file. And let me just put this on the side. You will be able to open the file with all of the recordings that you have. Now, these are however many Zoom meetings I have had personally. So if I go right here and I click on them, I will see a couple of things. First of all, let me actually go into one previous one that I recorded, this one. So you will see that in my Zoom folder from the previous meeting, I see a couple of things. This is my actual video recording of the session that happened. I will also get an audio file in case I only want the audio file, which is right here, audio only. And then this is a chat, and this answers the question that Derek raised a moment ago. Where do you access the chat file? So it will be a simple text document, and it will be by default, unless you specifically change this, but if you download the client, Zoom will create a Zoom folder in your documents, and it will store all of that information in there, video recordings locally and your chats. I also wanted to mention the following. Many faculty have expressed also concerns about local storage, meaning my actual device does not have a lot of memory. And what I have recommended in that case is just have it on your computer, put it on the desktop, and then move your file to your Dropbox, CUNY Dropbox. And when you do that, you can simply remove the file from your computer. So I wanted to show a couple of other things, and then we're going to jump to Dropbox because I want to demonstrate that too. But I wanted to remind everyone that this is being recorded and it will be available to you later. I wanted to go into the background and filter. This is the background, virtual backgrounds that I was mentioning a moment ago. Derek, I think resource number 9 on the Google Doc is the virtual backgrounds. If you could put that on the chat, that will be helpful. LaGuardia has put together a lot of images. As you can see, this one right here that you can put in case your students are choosing to use this as well. Should have closes. And then the video and the audio will obviously optimize whatever camera that you are using or whatever microphone. In my case, I'm only using the default webcam on my computer, but if you have a plugged-in webcam, you will be able to see it right here. And it's always recommended, I'm using an Apple wired headset. It's always recommended to have a wired audio connection, all right? This functions as my audio and this functions as my microphone. Sometimes if you have the new AirPods that are wireless, they will work well. They will have a very good sound, but most of the times the syncing with the platform may be a little off. So it's always recommended to use a wired if you're able to have that. Now, even if I'm not able to have this, even the microphone that's embedded on my desktop will be just fine. As long as there isn't a lot of background on my surroundings, then, you know, the device, the microphone on my device will be just fine, okay? I want to close this for a moment, and now I want to quickly go to, let me just move this up to,
Oh, Paul,
yes.
just before you go to the Dropbox stuff,
Yeah.
so there's a question, is it possible, like, let's say if you have like an actual like Blackboard or Whiteboard, like, and then is it possible to, like point the camera like on, like yourself while you're writing it, and like students will see like you writing the notes on the board? Like, would you recommend that? Like, is that like possible or doable?
It is, and I myself, I'm taking a class at another college, and actually my own professor does this. She's sitting on her desktop with a camera, and she does not have a virtual background. I believe she must be in a closed space, but she has an actual whiteboard that she places right behind her, and she's constantly pointing the camera to her and to the whiteboard, and she's also writing on the board as well. It is clear because she always writes very in big font in case you're writing like, very small. Obviously, students may not be able to see that, especially if they're joining from a phone. If you're joining from a phone, this is only the entire screen that you have. You're going to have to pinch in to zoom in and see what the person is showing. But if you are on a desktop, you should be able to see everything that the person is doing if the person has an actual whiteboard. I think it is perfectly fine. I have seen instructors do that. And if it works for you, you should absolutely go for it. I want to go to Dropbox very quickly. This is a service that also CUNY provides. And yesterday, I'm putting, sorry, I should have put this to everyone. I'm putting the link to Dropbox on the chat. CUNY offers Dropbox, and yesterday they told us that we have 1 TB of storage on Dropbox, which is plenty of space. If you have multiple video files, all you have to do is enable your Dropbox account, and then you will be able to store all of that there. I put this link on the chat, and then if you just simply go into here and then log into CUNY Dropbox, you will be prompted with this login screen, and this is the same type of login that you will do for Dropbox as you did for Zoom. Okay, so the good thing is that this one single CUNY credential will work in multiple instances. So all I have to do is simply enter my CUNY first credentials. As you can see right there.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Pablo, can you tell me how did you get this login screen for Dropbox?
If you go into, if you take a look at the chat, and I put the link to this page, this is the page that you, on the CUNY website, you scroll down a little bit, and then on the left, you will see the login to Dropbox button.
So
And
this
then,
is just cuny.edu, and that's the page. What is this page? The one that you are showing now?
This page that I am showing right now on this screen, the link it's on the chat. So if you're able to access the chat, you can simply click in there and you will be directed to this page. And then you scroll down on that page, and then you click on the login to Dropbox, and you will be prompted by this to put your login credentials. Once again, same credentials that you used for Zoom, your first name, that last name, and the 2 digits. And then you simply hit on login, and then you will be taken to your Dropbox account. I believe for first-time users, you will be prompted to the terms of use or something like that. That's a one-time click that you accept, and you will be directed to your files. I have plenty of files that I have added. You probably will not see this in your case, but if I go back to my set of folders, I want to show you one in particular. You can simply create right here on the right side, you create a new folder. And if you create a new folder, you will be prompted to name that folder just as you create a folder in your own desktop. And then you can deposit all of your video files in there. So in my case, this is a sample folder for my course. And I uploaded 1 video file. Once again, CUNY Dropbox allows you to store up to 1 TB of storage, which is a lot. So you're likely not going to run out of space. Now, what do I do with this? How do I get my students to actually see this? Well, I can share this entire folder so that every time that I'm putting a video into it, they will already have the link. So if I go ahead and hit and share the folder, I will simply go into the link settings. And the cool thing about Dropbox is that you are able to share with different levels of permissions. What do I mean by that is students do not necessarily have to log into Dropbox in order to see the content in your folder. You can share this link with anyone with the link, okay? You can also share this with a password, meaning you give them the link and then you give them a specific password to access this. And then there's additional options that you can play around with. One of them, for instance, expiration. If you don't want your videos to be accessible beyond December 12th, for instance, then you can set that date, and then your video content will the access to this folder will only be accessible until then. You can also disable downloads if you're concerned about your students downloading your content and then keeping a copy of that. You can always disable the downloads, meaning Dropbox will allow users to view this content, but if they want to download this file in some way, they're not going to be able to do that. So if you have concerns about your own content not being downloaded, this is another option that you can choose. At the very end, all you have to do is, in my case, I shared this link with anyone with the link. And then just gonna move this to the right side. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and hit save. And then I'm gonna copy this link. What do I do with this link? Well, actually, I'm gonna repeat a process that I did a moment ago when I share my Zoom link, okay? This is the same sample course, and I'm just going to go in here and then use a web link, okay? As I did with my Zoom, I'm gonna try to make this as clear as possible to my students. So I'm just gonna put class recordings, and I will just put the link right here. And available to users, this is the same process that I followed when I wanted to share the link for my meeting. Web link, and then put the title, the link, available to users, hit submit. I want to make sure that I make this as clearly and accessible to my students. So I'm going to move it all the way to the top. Under online sessions, now they have class recordings, and once they click on it, they will be able to access the folder that I set up on my Dropbox. I think Linda has a question. Go ahead,
Yes.
Linda.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good, excellent. So we take these recordings when you look at where do you get the recordings from? That's where I'm a little bit lost about.
The recordings from Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me share my entire screen once again.
Please.
If I go into my client and I go into the settings, I'm going to show you how to access this from. You're able to see my full screen,
Yes,
correct?
yes, thank you.
So I am on my client and I am on the settings, and this is the option that I shared a moment ago when I was in recordings. So you can find, if you download the client and you do not make any changes, by default, Zoom will create a Zoom folder inside your documents in your drive. And there you will find the recordings and you will find the text files if you saved the chat. So let me open this.
So if you press on recording, it should come up. That's what you're showing us, right? You press on recording and you, okay.
Correct. Now, if you press the record button, and I am recording right now, and then once you're done with your meeting, depends on how long your meeting will be, Zoom will take a time to process, and you will see the pop-up window that says your video is processing. Once that is done, Zoom will show you something like this. Let me go into, this is a previous meeting that I ran. This is more likely something like that you will see. You will see this is the actual video file. So this is what I want to move to Dropbox if I want to. This is my saved chat, because I saved the chat to make sure that I was looking at the questions people were asking. And this is an audio file that's also generated in case you need that as well. So all of that is on the recordings.
You can do all four at the same time, or you just, or which one do you press to go to Dropbox? Or you have to do it individually?
But you can do all four. What do you mean?
In other words, if I want, you press recordings, right? This is what you got on the right-hand side. and then
Mhm.
you open Dropbox. So how do you put that into Dropbox?
Oh, all I have to do is I'm gonna put, I'm gonna just drag and drop. So I'm gonna, in this case, I only want the video. I don't, unless you really want to copy all of the files, I would recommend if you want to share your video and the chat with students, just do one at a time this and the chat.
That's what I'm asking. So it's one at a time. You have to
It's
do
one
it
at a
in-
time, correct. And then all you have to do is you simply go ahead and do this, and then you will simply wait for it to load, and then it will be on this folder. Do you
So
have to
put it in, you put it into the new folder.
into the new folder? I'm just doing this for the purpose of the activity. Do you have to share this all over again? You do not, because the link it's already here. So every time that they go into the link, they will see a new item every time you upload. So you don't have to reshare the link. You can simply tell them, I have uploaded a new recording, visit the link, Zoom class recordings on Blackboard, and you will see it there. Okay?
I hope so. I'll have to practice.
Yes. Okay, this is almost everything that I wanted to share with you, but I wanted to end with a couple of recommendations. Let me just navigate.
Oh, Pablo, real quick.
Yes.
Even if you're using a personal Zoom account, you should still have access to the CUNY Dropbox, right?
That is correct. That is correct. As long as you are affiliated as a student or as an employee of the university and you have a working account, you should be able to access your CUNY account regardless of whether you have a personal account or not, regardless of whether you canceled an existing personal account. Those are very different. Yeah. And in case you do have problems accessing your CUNY account, I would recommend using the Zoom Help email address, zoomhelp@lagcc.cuny.edu. I would be happy to help you, but unfortunately, I am not an admin, so IT would have to step in and provide support if you have a problem accessing your account. These are already things that I already went over, and these are some final recommendations we wanted to end this. Turn off your camera when initiating a meeting if you have the option for your students, and turn it on manually just so that you can make sure that you start the meeting and you get ready. This is a good recommendation that we wanted to share with faculty. If the students turn their cameras on, consider virtual backgrounds, as I showed a moment ago. If they choose to open their, if they choose to turn on their cameras. Use the nonverbal feedback. As I mentioned, I should have mentioned this a moment ago. I will go ahead and do that in a moment. The breakout room feature is very helpful. That's going to be in the level 2 workshop. So I recommend that you sign up if you haven't already. The links to sign up are on the Google Doc that we share at the beginning of our session. And setting up your CUNY Dropbox account, it's always helpful, as I mentioned, so that you can maximize your online storage and you don't have to max out the storage on your own Blackboard course. And then consider asking students to have a notebook or something to write with. I always find this helpful. I'm sure you already do, even though distance learning is happening mostly digital. It's always helpful to ask students to have a physical notebook for them to take notes with. And then update your client, as I mentioned as well. It's always very helpful, whether it's for security reasons or to get access to new updates and features. It's always helpful to have that. I want to stop here and ask Derek if there are any questions, but if not, I want to show very quickly the nonverbal feedback.
So like whenever you record like the Zoom videos, and I guess like along with like the text, right? Basically like it'll always show up in like the documents folder of your computer.
It will always show by default if you do not do anything with it, but you can always change the destination folder, meaning if you want the videos to change to be saved on your desktop, you can always change that. But if you do not change anything, the default option, Zoom will create a Zoom folder in your documents folder, and it will store all of your documents, all of your local recordings there.
Okay.
I wanted to quickly demonstrate the nonverbal feedback, and by that, if you're looking at my entire environment, right, Derek?
Oh, wait, what?
You're looking at my entire Zoom environment right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go into at the bottom, all of these settings I'm able to see because I enable this in the settings. All right. So in case you're looking for the breakout rooms and you do not see that, it probably means because you have to have it enabled on your settings. So make sure that you always check the settings page. That's what we did at the beginning of our session, so that you make sure all of this enabled. The nonverbal feedback, it's this. If you go into the reactions, I normally use this to keep students engaged on an ongoing basis. And I tell them, how's everybody doing? Does anybody have any questions, or give me a thumbs up if you're doing okay? And I just ask them, and then instead of them having to unmute themselves, they can put the thumbs up, and that also tells me that they are engaged, that they are looking at the content, that they are listening to me. This is especially helpful for students who may not have their cameras on, so I cannot visually see them, but at least I'm able to know that they are actively engaged in the class. While I'm here, I also want to end with this.
I'm sorry, I didn't see where you got that from. Where
If
did
you
you
go,
get that from, the non
if you
Yes.
go at the bottom of your screen, and then you see
Yes.
the reactions.
Oh, reactions.
And
Okay.
if you see the
thank you.
reactions, before there used to be 3, now there's more. And this is cool because, you know, if someone shares something that's nice, you know, you can put a heart, you can put smiley face. I normally use this to keep students on an ongoing check basis. So I ask them, give me a thumbs up if everything is going well. And then I can see boom, boom, boom. And I'm on gallery view, and that tells me that they're actively, at least to the best of my ability, that they're listening to me. While I'm here, I also wanted to show this. This is the Zoom, the audio and video controls. It's always important to keep, to familiarize yourself with this. If you want to mute yourself, I was muted, you couldn't hear me. And then the same with the video. If I turn this off, that means you're only going to be able to see my picture. But now I turn my camera on. It's always helpful to familiarize users with that, those 2 options, so that they can play around with it. This is only for hosts, and this is the final tidbit. The security button, if you are the host in your meeting, the security button will be extremely important, especially if you're conducting sessions and you're thinking about the security of your sessions. If you click on it, you will be able to have a range of different options. First of all, the one that is mostly common, if you want students to share screen with one another, you might want to enable the allow participants to share screen. That's what you see in my screen. That will allow all participants to share their screens, but by default, only the hosts will be able to do that. So for instance, if any of you want to share their screen, you will not be able to do that unless I choose that option too. If you're doing that with the class, then go ahead and make sure that you check that off. The lock meeting is something security related. If you have all of your students in the class and you don't want anybody else to join the meeting, you can always lock the meeting. And I always tell people, just imagine this, like locking the door once everyone is inside the room so that no one else can come in. So that's essentially the equivalent of this. You can lock the meeting, no one else, even if they have your meeting information, they will not be able to get into your meeting. Enable the waiting room. If by any reasons you schedule a meeting and suddenly you did not enable the waiting room when you were scheduling the meeting, but you did want to do it, now you have the option to do that and enable it during the meeting. So that way you can be sure that no one will be able to enter unexpectedly. And finally, remove participant. I think this is important as well. Hopefully this is not your case, but if it happens, it's very helpful that you know you can remove a participant from your Zoom meeting by clicking on remove participant, and then you will essentially kick them out if there is any suspicious or unknown behavior that's happening. Okay, so this session was scheduled to be for 1 hour, but we went over, and I thank all of you for your attendance, and I hope that the session was helpful in any way. Once again, this is being recorded, and it will be available sometime by the end of the day via YouTube. If you register with an email address, I'm going to send that out soon tonight or maybe by tomorrow, and you will have this recording so that you can visit specific segments if you need to. I want to ask Derek in case there are any final questions.
Yes. So can you share again, like for anybody who missed it, like how to access the Dropbox account? And
Sure.
and just to make sure, like only like if you like since you are the host of this meeting, like you basically you are the one who chooses like where to post this recording. Like everybody else who attends this meeting, they can't access the video unless you post it somewhere, right?
No, they can access the, well, obviously you share the recording with whoever came to your session. But you can also do what I'm doing, which is sharing the recording with the entire world.
Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm posting this on YouTube, and I'm going to send out an email to the people who register to this workshop. But everyone who is watching the CTL YouTube channel will be able to access this recording. Now, if you have it in a restricted space like Dropbox, then obviously you will be able to only post that to the people who know how to find that. So the CUNY Dropbox, you can simply just go ahead and Google CUNY Dropbox, and it will likely come up on the top. And it's a CUNY website that gives you all information about CUNY Dropbox. And then it will take you to this page, which is what I posted on the chat. And then in here, there's plenty of information here, but the essence is the specific item you're looking for is logging into Dropbox, log into Dropbox. You click on it, it will take you to this login page. This is the same login credentials that you use for Zoom. So you just enter that in and go ahead and log in. I see Linda has a question.
I'm sorry, I have one very quick question. The last
Sure.
thing that you did, which made it possible to change settings, where did you click to get that?
Can you give me more details? Which
Yes, when you said like to kick out participant, that's not the word that's
oh,
there.
okay.
But
Yes. That's on the security icon. I'm going to show that in a moment. You're going to see that if you are the host. You are likely not going to see that right now because you are in a meeting that I have scheduled. But if you're scheduling a meeting and your students are coming to that meeting, you're going to see the security button. And I'm going to show that in just a moment.
Okay,
are there
thank you.
any other, of course, are there any other questions, Eric?
Let me see.
While you do that, I'm gonna.
Yeah, give me a second.
So to go back to Linda's question, the security button right here, you're going to see that if you're the host, and you simply will hit remove participant, and then it will give you the full list of, you're seeing my screen right now, right, Linda?
Yep, yes, but where is
Okay.
the security button? When you go into the, where do you get that?
The security button, it's going to be at the bottom, but again, you're not going to see it right now because you're not the host.
Okay,
So,
I got it, okay.
So when you are the host in your own meeting, you will see it. You simply click on remove participant. Zoom will give you the list of all the participants, and then I can.
Thank you, okay.
I can invite anyone to leave my meeting.
Thank you.
No
I
problem.
just wanted to know where the security button was, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so if there are no additional questions, I want to thank all of you once again for your attendance. I hope that this was helpful in any way. Once again, the recording will be available later today or maybe by tomorrow, if you allow me to have the time to upload the video. If you register, I'm going to push an email out to everyone who did with a link on YouTube. And in the meantime, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out. My email address, it's an email that I sent. So you can always let me know. Okay. So
yeah,
yes,
so
Derek.
I'm not sure she's here, but like Tulip might need our help. I don't know, like just accessing like the settings.
Okay, so Tulip,
I'm
we're
not
gonna
sure
stay
if
in touch. If you send me an
still
email
needs help.
separately, we can get you the help that you need if it's something more specific. Okay. So once again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Until the next one. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.